I'm Dr. Lisa Galper, and I'm here today to talk to you about one of the really early steps in helping you overcome emotional eating. A lot of people tell me that when they have an urge to eat, and it's for emotional reasons, the emotions dominate them so quickly that they find themselves eating instead of using other tools. Well, one of the ways that you can begin to stop this urge from overtaking you is to begin to find out what the reasons are that are driving your overeating, develop some skills that will help you to manage those urges, and also some ways to remind you of what the emotionally important reasons are that you really want to use your skills instead of turning to food when you feel uncomfortable emotions. One of the first exercises I like to teach people is called a pros and cons exercise. The pros and cons exercise is an exercise where I help people examine the pros and cons of emotional eating for them. So for example, when we examine the pros, what it is that emotional eating might do for you in the positive, for example, comfort you when you feel lonely or stressed out, that might help you identify a source of your overeating. And then you'd know where to focus building your skills. You might develop some friendships. When we examine the cons, we're noticing what it is that emotional eating does to us that we don't like. When we feel bloated, if after eating I feel guilty and unhappy, upset with myself. And if I keep that in the front of my mind, a lot of the time it will help me to make different choices, to use my skills, rather than to jump on my urges and go for the food, knowing that I'm going to feel badly afterwards. Here's an example of an emotional eating pros and cons exercise done by Leslie. When Leslie began to dissect the pros of what makes her emotionally overeat, ways in which eating helps her feel better, she noticed that the most important one at the top of the list was this sense that I get to take care of me. Leslie said for the first time all day long, when she gets home, she turns to food because that's what makes her feel like she's being taken care of and not focusing on the needs of everyone around her. For Leslie, food was a way to soothe herself when she was stressed out, to help her forget her worries. Leslie also felt food comforted her when she felt lonely. And she was worried, because she bonded with friends over food, that if she were to stop eating as much, she might actually lose some of the friends she had. In addition, Leslie had a history of emotional and physical abuse, and her weight made her feel safe from unwanted attention. On the con side, Leslie noticed that when she would emotionally eat, the number one thing that came up for her was that she felt like a failure, and her self-esteem would plummet. She would feel guilty and angry with herself and beat herself up and tell herself that it was hopeless, that she would never lose weight. She told me also that she knew that the eating was just a temporary fix and that the problem was still there when she was done eating. But she didn't really know what else to do. The next step in this process was to have Leslie look at her pros and identify how those pros gave her information about what she really needed besides food to help her feel better. So Leslie came up with, as you remember, that she felt like she didn't have enough self-care, enough time for herself, that she felt somewhat lonely, and that she didn't know what to do when she felt stressed. So as we talked about those things, Leslie decided that she would invite 2 of her friends to take a Zumba class with her twice a week after work, which was the time that she typically overate. When Leslie started to take the Zumba class, what she noticed was she felt far less stressed out. She had something to bond with her friends about that wasn't food related. And she also took her mind off her worries for a period of time in the evenings. That was not something that watching TV, her old standby, and eating a bag of chips ever really did well for her. Another thing was that Leslie had worries that she didn't know what to do with. So one of the things I taught her was to journal, and to journal about her worries and what they were really made of, so that she could start feeling like she had some sense of how she could take control of her life. We also used journaling to help her look at what it was about her weight and fearing unwanted attention, where that came from, and what she wanted to do about that. So if you remember Leslie's exercise, when she wrote the cons, she was really focused on a lot of negative self-talk. I feel like a failure. My self-esteem plummets. I'm not okay. I feel full and stuffed. So one of the things that I had her do was pick out the thought that really got her goat the most, which was, I feel like a failure. And instead of trying to convince her, no, you're not a failure, what I had her do instead was to notice each day for a month small things that indicated that she actually was having success. So each day she would make a short list of things that she experienced as successful, including going to Zumba with her friends. By the end of the month, Leslie had 4 pages worth of ways in which she was a success, and reading them over and over again each night helped to compete with the thoughts, I am a failure, and started to help her feel better about herself in general. Leslie was just one of many people who came to see me who reported feeling powerless over her food. And once she did the pros and cons exercise, she really began to experience more ability to take control of her life because she knew that there were valid reasons that she felt like eating emotionally. Please try the pros and cons exercise as a way to begin to dissect the reasons that are really valid for you, that make you want to turn to food, so that you can begin to understand what else you could do to fill your life up so you can take your power back from food. In the name of helping you with this exercise, I wrote an article that's on the poweroverfood.com website, so you can read it and get more help and more understanding. And remember, this is only one tool to help you identify why you might want to emotionally overeat, and there will be many more to come.